Hello, and welcome to the Little Compton Historical Society. My name is Marjory O'Toole, and I'm the Executive Director, and today we're really happy to share with you a walking tour, a walk-through of our 2023-2024 winter exhibit, To Little Compton with Love, the art and poetry of Ambassador J. William Middendorf II. And we are really happy to have with us today Ambassador Middendorf's daughter, Frances Middendorf, who likes to go by Franny. Is that right? So Franny Middendorf. And Franny was kind enough to curate and install this exhibit for us with some good help, but Franny was in charge. And it was a labor of love for her at a very busy time. And I think the outcome shows the love that went into setting up all the different portions of the exhibit. So there's 3 sections to the exhibit. There's a biography room, there's a Christmas room because we opened shortly before Christmas of 23, and then there's a larger gallery filled with the ambassador's art and poetry. So we're going to go into the bio room and have Franny tell us a little bit about her dad's life.
So we'll start the show with this wonderful portrait that was done by my wonderful Ukrainian artist friend named Leonid Gerwitz. And he came up from New York and painted this portrait of Dad in 3 days. And it has all the accoutrements that are his favorites. He loves old cars. This was his ship in World War II where he was the engineer. And this is one of his favorite paintings by Jan Levens. And his medals and his sort of winsome grin. So that's the wonderful portrait. He was very influenced by people that he's a very good delegator. So he has a very keen understanding of talented people and knows how to delegate, so that he was able to economize his time so that he could do the things that he loved. And art was his first love, but he also wanted to serve the country. He's very idealistic, and he really, I think, did a very good job balancing career and life. But I have to say, as a kid, I'll give a little anecdote, I had to pose for him in order to have time with him. So he had a lot of interests, and family was a big interest, but he had other interests as well, and one wanted to do what they could. My ancestor was Captain William Stone, and he gave 2 of the earliest naval ships to Washington's Navy back in 1776. And so Dad's been very proud of his ancestors and his family's association with the Navy. And of course, he served in the Navy during World War II and was on a support ship, LCD, that he was 9 months at sea in the Pacific during World War II. And so when he was asked in 1968 what position he would like to work with in government, because he had supported the Goldwater campaign very, very well, and so they wanted to reward him for what he had done for the party, and so they offered him any political appointment he wanted, and he, of course, wanted to be the Secretary of the Navy. Well, the Secretary of the Navy position they ended up giving to Chafee, who also had done a lot of work for the Republican Party. And he needed a position before he was running again for Senator of Rhode Island. And so Dad, second choice was to go as the ambassador to Holland. And so he spent 4 years in Holland and then came back and became the Undersecretary of the Navy and then the Secretary of the Navy. And I think he started in '75. This was his lifelong dream, and And here's some memorabilia from some of the medals that he won. This is his boat in World War II. This is a new Arleigh Burke destroyer that they're naming after my father that will be finished in 2025, we hope.
And tell us where that ship is going to be made, because I found that very interesting.
Bath, Maine. When Dad was Secretary of the Navy, he always preferred having his ships built in Bath, Maine, because the people work the hardest there, he says. So he was thrilled when they chose Bath, Maine to build a ship named after himself. So Marjory and I had great fun going into the storage and finding all these great photos. So here's sort of a memory lane of all the my father with all the presidents that he served under. He started with Eisenhower, worked as the finance fundraising head for the Goldwater campaign. Then he served under Nixon as ambassador to Holland, then under Ford as Secretary of the Navy, and then also under Jimmy Carter, he continued on until they found a replacement. And then he worked with Ronald Reagan as the ambassador to the Organization of American States. And then he worked for Bush Sr., George Bush Sr. as the ambassador to the common market at those days, which is now the European Union.
And he was the first ambassador to what is now he was the first American ambassador to what is now the European Union.
Yes.
That is particularly impressive to me.
It's called the common market then, yeah. And they weren't very popular. It was a hard job. And then this, I don't think he worked under George Bush Jr., but this is a fun photograph. And then here's a photograph of him with the Heritage Foundation, correct? Yeah. And Donald Trump. And underneath are wonderful people that he met and worked with throughout his political career. Times when he was very happy. He was very involved with NATO and Americans' involvement with NATO and Holland. And so here's the Secretary of Defense Lund, the Dutch secretary. Here is the opening of Parliament in Holland when he first arrived. This is a wonderful picture of my mother. Here's a picture of Queen Wilhelmina and her husband. And here's a picture of him with Queen Beatrice, the daughter, and the next in line for the throne. Here's also other photos in Holland. Then, of course, in 1969, the moonwalk, and Dad got to meet all the astronauts, and that was a wonderful big deal for him. And then he was on a committee to foster democracy in Russia in 1989. And he also was able to go to the Berlin Wall when they took it down. So those were two very important moments for him because he felt that it was his policies that really led to the end of the Cold War, and was very proud of that result. Here's a wonderful picture of Queen Elizabeth on the U.S. Constitution for the bicentennial. And then Margaret Thatcher was a great, Dad and Margaret Thatcher got along very well. And here's a wonderful picture of Bob Hope, and then a family picture, which was Dad's last day in government. So this is a wonderful wall of Dad's sports history. He was always a very keen athlete. So right before World War II, there was a limited amount of men, of course. So they were all enlisted to go and fight. And so the New York Giants called my dad and wanted him to try out to be a pitcher for the New York Giants. And he would have done it, but he also decided to enlist and went to ROTC at Holy Cross in Worcester. After World War II, I think the sequence, the sequence is he worked in New York, but he loved field hockey. And he met this incredible field hockey player named Nebal Black, who's here on the right. And Nebal Black was genius and organized this great hockey team and asked Dad to be the coach, because he had had a great history of field hockey. And they went to the Olympics in 1960, which was very exciting. And that was in Rome, so that was an exciting moment. And they also went to Lyon, France for the World Cup. So that it was two wonderful opportunities for him to travel with this great team. When he was ambassador to Holland, they asked him to play on the local team, so he loved that. He always liked to row, so he competed with one of the admirals who was running, and he rowed, and he beat him, and that was very exciting. He's always been a good marksman, and here's a wonderful score of great marksmanship here. And then his rowing was a sport that he did most of his later years, because it's a wonderful workout and very low impact. So he could do that up until he was 85, I think. So here he is winning the World Championships in the double, in the Masters category. And then this was just in 2018. This is the last time he rowed in a double, and he loved that. It was great on the Narragansett. So.
And he was 94.
And he was 94, yeah. So he competed until he was 85 and rowed when he was 94. So.
And how old is he now, Franny? Because I don't think we've mentioned that.
He's going to be 100 in September.
Yeah.
And thanks to Marjory, she organized this show in his 100th year, which was very appropriate for a historical society, right?
We like anniversaries, yes.
So I like to take a little bit of credit for his music, because I introduced him to this wonderful Thai ambassador's son named Samtao Sucharikul, who lived 2 doors down from us in Holland. And the two of them got to talking, and Dad said he had always wanted to compose. And Samtao, who was a music prodigy, said, "Oh, I can teach you how to compose." And so the two of them ended up being an amazing team and composed a lot of music for many years. I would say almost 30 years. They composed music together. So in Holland, he wrote the Holland Symphony. He wrote this wonderful violin concerto and a sort of operetta called The King Richard the Lionhearted. He wrote numerous marches, the Crusade Symphony, and it was a pastime that he loved, and he and Samtao would sit up until 2 or 3 in the morning, composing music, and then Samtao was able to put it all on scores and publish it. He knew all the technical things to finish up the work, so it was great. And then Dad has always loved poetry. He knew Robert Frost. He sponsored him for the Groyler Club in New York. He went to visit Robert Frost at his home many times. So Dad has always had a very easy ability for very humorous poetry throughout his life. So.
And he is continuing to write poetry almost daily now. Tell us what he's been doing.
So what happened was when he lost his eyesight, he had been sketching every night, almost for many years. And when he couldn't see anymore, it was a great blow for him. So I suggested, why don't we start writing some haikus? And he didn't know what they were at first, and so called them haifus. I don't know if he wants me to say that, but anyway, and they are a little bit like haifu rather than haiku. But he's very, very clever at them and really funny. And Marjory very kindly, and I think it adds a great dimension to the exhibit. Included some of his recent haiku that are part of the exhibit, which are great fun. So one of them is, "Fiedler's conducting tip: when the band stops playing, you stop waving." So.
And tell us how your father would wake you up in the morning when you were teenagers.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular as a teenager to be woken up at 6 with great Sousa marches booming around the house. But anyway, you didn't sleep in much.
And so before we go into the gallery with the greatest number of his paintings, why don't we take a moment to look at our little Christmas room. The exhibit opened shortly before the holidays in December, and so it was a wonderful way for people to step into the exhibit and be greeted with some very warm Christmassy things. Why don't you tell us what's going on with this Christmas tree? What are these decorations all about?
Well, first of all, Marjory, I want to thank you so much because this is your idea and it's such a nice idea. So Marjory decided to take all of his Christmas cards that he had done over the years, and I think there's 35 of them, aren't there? And decorate a Christmas tree with all of his cards. So that was really thoughtful, and they're great fun. This is my favorite. This is Dear Santa, cut me some slack. I can explain everything. And this is an original that became a Christmas card of the Wilbur store with a reindeer sleigh in front. This was a lovely, lovely experience that Dad had in Holland when he first moved there. My mother stayed back so that we could finish elementary school. And so he was alone in Holland, and most of his weekends were free. So he was introduced to this amazing artist named Joop Nicolaus. And Joop Nicolaus was the last Limburg stained glass window artist in Holland that was still practicing and still working on churches and making stained glass. And so every weekend, Dad would go out to Limburg and work in the studio. And this is one of the pieces that he did with Joop. And can I say anecdotally, Miriam Scott, another local woman in Little Compton, was Joop Nicolaus's assistant right after the war. And so it's really wonderful how such a small world Little Compton can be. And then these two are, this is a wonderful little pastel of a Christmas candy, and this is another Christmas card of our cows in the back.
I particularly like the way this wall came out, because the poems here, the haikus here, all touch on longevity and long life. So I thought this was a great collection of poems.
Yes, and I love the watercolors, and these are all done in our backyard. It's something Dad was very, very, his love was the farm and the cows, and seeing it in all different seasons, and the paintings and the images that were chosen to go with the haiku, I think, are really appropriate because they're very poetic. Some of it's more poetic pieces. So we're going to start here because these are some memorabilia from Dad's studio. Some of his brushes, some of the materials that he used, and these wonderful sketchbooks, which we found 6,000 now, and it just shows that he would always be drawing. If he went somewhere at meals, any lecture, anything, he would always be sketching, and anything that moved, he would sketch. He loved figures, so one notices that there's always a figure or two in all of his sketches. He loved seeing human life interact. This is all Little Compton characters that he documented. The 4-H fair, the cows in the backyard, the kids' picnics. He didn't miss a trick. The building of the Wilbur House roof, right? And these are a lovely family. He was very proud of his family and his accomplishment and what my siblings all accomplished. So he always documented all those moments, which is wonderful. So it's nice to have it. It's much better than family snapshots. And then in this wall, we'll begin with the first things he did, these are my brothers when they were young. He's been doing this since, I think he started in 1947, keeping these sketchbooks. So, and then these are all little Compton scenes. This was a wonderful weekly drawing session that we had with Vicki Kelly and Sarah Vanderliff. Yeah, is the model. So those were great fun. And this is Vicky's dog. She had a schnauzer. And these are my dogs. And this is my ex-husband playing music in town with some local Mimi Whitmarsh and a few others. And my mother on the beach, my mother reading.
And although, Franny and I had some input on what came over to the exhibit, so did your father.
Yeah.
Your father had some specific things that he really wanted included, and we were able to honor those suggestions, those requests. So the mobile was something that was really important to him to bring over, and there was a sketch of your mom that was really important. So it was nice that he had some real input on what was going to be shown here.
And this is Big Fish Eating Little Fish. And this was done for an exhibit that we were lucky to have in Calder's studio. Alexander Calder had a studio in New York, and we had a show in the space where he worked. And so to honor Calder and the space, Dad did a series of mobiles. And Sarah Young, his assistant, did a lot of work for these as well. So they're great fun, and I'm happy that they were included. This portrait of my sister, who died of epilepsy in 1979, is a wonderful memory to have. As I said, we all had to pose for him if we wanted to have a relationship with him. So there's lots of family portraits. And this is, I'm painting Dad and he's painting me, and that's that painting on the right. And this is me painting. And this is Phil Marvel, who's a great friend of my dad's. And then these are, Dad was part of a painting group here in Little Compton, and these are a nice series of pastels and watercolors and oils that he did with his painting group. Meredith Wild's Cornell is here, and there's a few. And this is me sketching on Secana Point. So great Little Compton local scenes, right? So one of Dad's best friends, and I thought they had a really nice mutual friendship, was Sonny Manchester. And Sonny Manchester was very proud of his pumpkins. And he inspired Dad to try to grow a big pumpkin for the annual pumpkin contest of who has the biggest pumpkin. But he failed to tell him that you had to feed the pumpkin. So he got the good seeds, but his dad's pumpkins never got so big. But Sonny used to laugh, and they had such a great fun. And then Sonny's daughter, Dot Manchester, has worked with Dad now for 40 years. So she's part of the family, and we're so grateful to her for all that she's done for him over the years, and she's part of the family. So it's nice to have the next generation around. Some of my favorite work of my dad's is his pastels. And he was lucky to work with a wonderful artist named Wolf Kahn, who came with Virginia Lynch when she had a gallery in Tiverton. And Dad and Wolf had a lovely friendship as well. And I think it was a medium that worked really well with his drawing skills and his sense of color. And he took to pastels like the duck to water, I think. And so those are the pieces that I find quite strong. The this wonderful view of the windows, Little Compton, back in 1953. So it's lovely to have the whole history of Dad's love of painting and drawing in Little Compton. The paintings above also are Little Compton scenes. He loved, different times of day and the different animals, and of course the water. And
almost everything that we've displayed here is still in your dad's personal collection, but we did have a couple of people lend us paintings. Do you want to take a minute just to point those out?
Yes, this is so exciting. So Dougie Whitmarsh very nicely lent this pastel of a drawing that Dad did of Mimi and Lucy on the beach, which is her two girls. So that was very generous because we hadn't seen this for a while. So it was very nice of her to lend that.
Our sort of signature painting, our logo painting, is also alone, isn't it?
Oh, yes. So I want to thank Peter very much for lending this painting, which is one of my favorites. This is Helger's, and I think the way Dad used the stripes of the fields and that wonderful view up to the turkey farm is just so poetic and so great. And such a great local scene, and Helger's truck up on the ridge is just such a great touch, I think. So I love this. This is a painting of our yard, and this is me with my wonderful dog Mosey, and this is Gentleman, and I will add an anecdote which is in keeping with the Historical Society, because Carlton Brunel had an amazing ram named Rambo. And Rambo was a handful, and so Carlton couldn't have Rambo on his farm all the time because he caused too much trouble with his ewes. So he very kindly lent Rambo to our farm when he didn't need him for breeding. And Rambo and Gentleman, my horse, became the best friends, and they became thugs. And I had sheep too, but Rambo was much more interested in Gentleman than he was in the ewes. So I love having this history of my wonderful retired horse, Gentleman. He came from Jerry Gagnon's farm, and he was not rideable when we took him, but he retired on our farm, and he had a wonderful old age with Rambo. Then these are my mother's dogs. This is Jacob, her Westie. Again, wonderful views of the farm and the beach. And my mother's favorite bird feeder with the cardinals landing in there. And then Dad chose the Storm at Sea here. He's very partial to that painting.
And someone inquired about the dot of red up in the sky.
That's the sunset. Yeah.
And that's what I said, and I don't think they believed me. So.
Oh, no, we know because we see it every night, right? That's obviously the western view. Yeah. Western view from Sakana Point, yeah. And then I love this pastel that the original is in the office, but we blew it up on Marjory's suggestion, and this is I'm very attached to this because I love the big Little Compton sky that goes from violet down to yellow, and then my mother with her Westie. So I love this piece. On this wall, the house with the western exposure as a silhouette. I think this is a really nice painting. And then Dad also wanted this painting to be in the show because it's my mother and Connie Duhamel, her best friend. And they had a really special friendship, and we all love Connie Duhamel more than anything. And so it's lovely to have her remembered, just, even though she's still kicking. My mom isn't, but. And then this was John Nelson's ox that we had on the farm for a while. And I can't remember his name. John Nelson will remember, but we loved him. He had a wonderful characteristic name, which I wish I could remember. And then Dad also wanted the path to the sea. I think this is a really beautiful pastel that he did, a path going down to Warren's Point, or actually Philippi Beach, actually. And then up above, we pulled out some fun Navy clothes out of the closet. So this is a nightgown, or a bathrobe, that was presented to him in 1977 when he finished his work as Secretary of the Navy. This is a bomber jacket that was given to him. This is his coaching jacket when he served for the Olympics in 1960 for the hockey team. And then this is what he would wear to most Navy events with his medals.